The doorbell rang at 6:30 on a Tuesday evening. I was helping Sophie with her algebra homework at the kitchen table. She was 13 now, all long limbs and braces, struggling with polynomials the way I once did. 8 years had passed since her mother dropped her off at my apartment for just a weekend and never came back. "I'll get it," I said, thinking it might be our neighbor returning the ladder I'd lent her. I opened the door to find my sister Melissa standing on my porch. She looked different, thinner. Her hair was dyed an aggressive shade of red. A man I didn't recognize stood beside her, sleeve tattoos visible under his leather jacket. "Claire," Melissa said, like we'd seen each other last week instead of 8 years ago. Like she hadn't disappeared without explanation, without a phone call, without a single birthday card. "We need to talk." "Mom." Sophie's voice came from behind me, small and uncertain. She'd stopped calling Melissa Mom around age 7, when she finally accepted that her mother wasn't coming back. Now she called me that, though I'd never asked her to. It had happened naturally, gradually, until one day it just was. "Baby girl." Melissa moved forward like she was going to rush past me, arms outstretched in a performance of maternal affection. I blocked the doorway with my body, keeping my stance casual but firm. "Look how big you are. I've missed you so much. You're practically grown up now." Sophie didn't move from her position halfway between the kitchen and front door. Her face had gone pale, the color draining from her cheeks the way it did when she had panic attacks. I could see her starting to breathe faster. "What do you want, Melissa?" I kept my voice level. "What do I want? I want to see my daughter. It's been too long. I'm here to take her home." The man beside her nodded. "We've got a place set up for her. 2-bedroom apartment. She'll have her own room." "And you are?" I asked. "Derek, Melissa's fiancé, soon to be Sophie's stepdad." He smiled like this was good news. Sophie's hand found mine. Her fingers were cold. "This isn't a good time," I said. "Sophie has school tomorrow. Homework to finish. I'm her mother, Claire. You can't keep her from me." Melissa's voice took on an edge I remembered from childhood. The tone that preceded tantrums, manipulation, threats. "You haven't seen her in 8 years. I was getting my life together. I had problems. I'm better now. Clean and sober 2 years. She pulled out her phone. "I've got documentation. Court-ordered rehab completion certificates. I'm ready to be your mom again." "That's great, Melissa, really. But Sophie has a life here. Friends, school, stability. You can't just show up and take her." "Actually, I can. I'm her biological mother. I never signed away my rights. Legally, she's mine." Melissa crossed her arms. "I talked to a lawyer. You're just her aunt. You've got no legal standing." My heart started pounding, but I kept my face neutral. "We should discuss this properly. Not on the doorstep. Give me your number and I'll call you tomorrow." "No. I want my daughter back now, tonight." Sophie's grip on my hand tightened. "I don't want to go." "Sweetie, I know it's a lot," Melissa said in what I suppose was meant to be a soothing voice. "But I'm your real mom. We're your real family. Derek and I are going to give you everything you deserve." Everything she deserves? I couldn't keep the edge out of my voice. Where were you when she had nightmares every night for 6 months? When she started first grade? When she learned to ride a bike? When she broke her arm falling off the monkey bars? I was sick, Claire. Addiction is a disease. And abandonment is a choice. You didn't call once, not on her birthday, not on Christmas, not ever. Derek stepped forward. "Look, we're not trying to cause problems. But Melissa has rights. Sophie belongs with her real family." "I am her real family," I said quietly. "I'm the one who's been here." "For now," Melissa said. "But I'm taking her back, one way or another." After they left, Sophie cried for an hour. I held her on the couch, promising her what I'd promised 8 years ago. I would keep her safe. But Melissa's words haunted me. Biological mother. Legal rights. I'd never formally adopted Sophie. I'd assumed Melissa was gone forever, that her absence was permanent. I'd gotten guardianship through the family court, but guardianship wasn't adoption. Guardianship could be challenged. I called my lawyer, Patricia Hoffman, first thing Wednesday morning. "How strong is her case?" I asked after explaining the situation. "Moderate," Patricia said carefully. "She's the biological mother. If she can prove she's rehabilitated, stable, and capable of providing care, a court might grant her custody, especially with you only having guardianship. But I've raised Sophie for 8 years." "I know. and that matters. But biological parent rights are powerful. We'd have to prove reunification isn't in Sophie's best interest. Patricia paused. There's another option. What? We finalized your adoption of Sophie. You filed the preliminary paperwork 4 years ago, but never completed it. We can move forward now. If you're her legal adoptive parent, Melissa's biological claim becomes much weaker. How long does adoption take? Usually 6 to 12 months, but given the circumstances, we might be able to expedite. Judge Morrison handles these cases. She's reasonable. If Sophie testifies that she wants to stay with you, if we show 8 years of stability versus Melissa's absence, we have a strong case. Do it, I said. File everything. What I didn't tell Patricia yet was the other reason Melissa had returned. The reason I'd been expecting something like this, though I'd hoped I was wrong. 2 months ago, my father had died. He'd been estranged from both Melissa and me for years, disappointed in her addiction and my choice to raise Sophie without his help. But his will had surprised everyone. He'd left his considerable estate in trust for his grandchildren. Sophie was his only grandchild, the only heir to his real estate development fortune. $12 million held in trust until Sophie turned 25. The structure was ironclad, designed by expensive estate lawyers. I was named as trustee, responsible for managing the funds and distributing them for Sophie's education, health, and welfare until she reached maturity. I had no access to the principal for myself. Every expenditure had to be documented and justified. The trust was for Sophie alone. The will had been public record for 6 weeks now, filed with the county probate court, available to anyone who searched the database. It hadn't taken long for people to notice that a 13-year-old girl was suddenly worth $12 million. 6 weeks ago, I'd started receiving strange calls from numbers I didn't recognize. 4 weeks ago, someone tried to friend Sophie on social media using a fake account. 3 weeks ago, Melissa had sent me a single text. "We need to talk about Sophie." I'd ignored it. I should have known she wouldn't give up. Thursday afternoon, Patricia called. "Melissa filed for custody. Emergency motion. She's claiming you've been keeping Sophie from her, that she's been trying to reconnect for months." That's a lie. I know, we'll prove it. But Claire, there's something else. Her lawyer mentioned the trust fund. They're arguing that Sophie needs her biological mother to help manage her inheritance, that you have a conflict of interest as trustee. There it was, the real reason. They want the money, I said flatly. It appears so. The good news is that makes their case weaker. Judges don't like parents who abandon children and return when money becomes available. The bad news is we need to move fast. I'm filing your adoption petition tomorrow. We'll request an emergency hearing to block Melissa's custody motion until the adoption is resolved. Friday morning, I explained everything to Sophie. She deserved to know. She wants the money Grandpa left you, I said gently. That's why she came back. Sophie was quiet for a long moment. I don't want her money. I don't want Grandpa's money. I just want to stay here with you. You will stay here. I promise. But I need you to be honest with me. Do you want me to adopt you? Legally? So I'm not just your aunt anymore, but your actual mom in the eyes of the law? Her eyes filled with tears. You already are my mom. I know, sweetie. But we need to make it official. There will be a court hearing. A judge will ask you questions. You'll have to tell them what you want. I want to stay with you. Forever. Then that's what we'll fight for. The emergency hearing was scheduled for the following Wednesday. Judge Morrison, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and no-nonsense demeanor, listened to both sides. Melissa's lawyer argued rehabilitation, maternal rights, biological bonds. He painted me as an aunt who'd overstepped, who was trying to replace Sophie's real mother, who had a financial interest in keeping Sophie away from Melissa. Patricia presented 8 years of documentation, school records listing me as guardian, medical records showing me as emergency contact, bank statements proving I paid for everything, Sophie's therapy records indicating attachment and stability with me, trauma from the abandonment. Then Patricia dropped the evidence that changed everything. Your Honor, we'd like to submit Ms. Melissa Grant's financial records for the past 2 years. Patricia handed documents to the judge. You'll notice she's accumulated significant debt, $87,000 across multiple credit cards and personal loans. She was evicted from 2 apartments in the past year for non-payment of rent. She's currently unemployed and has been for 7 months. Her fiancé Derek Matthews has a criminal record including theft and fraud. She continued, her voice steady and professional. We'd also like to submit phone records, text message logs, and postal service confirmations showing Ms. Grant made no attempt to contact Sophie until 6 weeks ago. That date coincides exactly with the probate of Thomas Grant's will becoming public record. Before she knew about the trust fund, Sophie didn't exist to her. After she learned about $12 million, suddenly she's Mother of the Year. We have documentation of her calling the probate court for trust fund details just 3 days before she appeared at Ms. Whitmore's home. Melissa's face went red. That's not true. I've always loved my daughter. Then where's the proof? Patricia asked calmly. 8 years of silence. No birthday cards. No Christmas presents. No child support. Not one phone call. Ms. Whitmore has receipts for every expense. Can you show the court even one attempt to contact your daughter before you learned she was in Harris? Silence. Judge Morrison looked at Melissa. Ms. Grant, I've heard enough. Your timing is suspicious. Your financial desperation is obvious. Your 8-year absence is inexcusable. This court is not in the business of reuniting children with parents who only want them as assets. She turned to me. Ms. Whitmore, I'm granting your petition for expedited adoption proceedings. I'm also issuing a restraining order preventing Ms. Grant from contacting Sophie until this matter is resolved. We'll have a final hearing in 6 weeks. Melissa stood up. You can't do this. She's my daughter. She was your daughter, Judge Morrison said coldly. You abandoned her. Ms. Whitmore raised her. Now we're going to make that arrangement permanent and legal. Derek grabbed Melissa's arm. What about the money? The trust fund? And there it was, out loud, in front of the judge. Judge Morrison's expression hardened further. The trust fund is managed by Ms. Whitmore as trustee, appointed by the deceased. That has nothing to do with custody. If you're interested in Sophie's welfare, you'd never mention money in a custody hearing. If you're interested in money, you've just proven you shouldn't have custody. She banged her gavel. This hearing is concluded. 6 weeks later, the adoption was finalized. Sophie sat between Patricia and me, holding my hand, as Judge Morrison signed the papers that made me her legal mother. It was a cool October morning, exactly 8 years and 2 months since Melissa had dropped Sophie off for that weekend. Melissa didn't show up to the final hearing. Her lawyer had withdrawn from the case 3 days earlier, citing ethical concerns about her client's motivations. I learned later that Derek had left her too, once he realized there was no money to be gained, no access to the trust fund, no quick payday from reuniting with a child he'd never met. Patricia handed me the adoption certificate, the paper still warm from the court seal. It's official. Sophie Whitmore is legally your daughter. Melissa's parental rights have been terminated. She has no legal standing anymore. The trust fund remains under your sole management as trustee until Sophie turns 25. Sophie smiled, really smiled, for the first time in weeks. That evening, we celebrated with pizza and ice cream. Sophie wanted to watch old home videos, something we did sometimes when she needed comfort. We scrolled through 8 years of memories. Her first day of school. Her dance recitals. Her birthday parties. Mornings. Summer vacations. Mom, Sophie said during a video of her 8th birthday. She called me that naturally now, no hesitation. Yes. I'm glad she left. I looked at her, surprised. I'm not glad she hurt me. But I'm glad I got to be with you instead. You chose me. She would have just kept me because she had to. I hugged her tight. I'll always choose you. The trust fund sat untouched except for deposits into Sophie's college savings account. I didn't need it. I'd always supported us with my teaching salary. The money would be there when Sophie was 25, when she was old enough to make her own decisions about it. Melissa sent one final text a month later. You poisoned her against me. I blocked the number and deleted it. Because the truth was simple. I hadn't poisoned Sophie against anyone. Melissa had done that herself 8 years ago, when she walked away from a 5-year-old child and never looked back. Some people spend years earning the title of mother. Others abandon it the moment it becomes inconvenient. I'd earned it, day by day, night by night, homework assignment by homework assignment, nightmare by nightmare, scraped knee by scraped knee. And now, finally, legally, it was mine. The trust fund was just money. Sophie was everything.